Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is episode 147, recorded on September 21st, 2016. And if you want to see all of my shows, you can go to my video blog, walkinthepark.tv. This week we're going to go to various places and do various things. But first of all, we're going to go to Taganic Falls State Park. Here's the overlook just a few days ago, before the rain we had on the weekend. And look at that. Not much has changed this summer. Most of the summer, the falls have looked like this because of the unending drought that occasionally has a little bit of rain around here, but certainly not enough to make up the difference of months and months of drought since the spring, really. So look how dry that waterfall is. People think there's no water at all on it, and they're virtually right. The cliff there is a little bit wet from a dribble coming off the right side of the top of the waterfall, which you can only really see with binoculars, the water that's actually coming across here. So that's how low it is, such a tiny dribble. And then you look down at the bottom, you see the plunge pool where the water usually crashes, disappears into the gravel. There's hardly any water. This side comes out later beyond the gravel, but it's just not much at all, as we'll see in some other places as well. So let's go. We're going to go over to now Robert Treman State Park and go in the upper gorge there and see what's going on there with Lucifer Falls. So we walk in the trail up there from the upper park, nice and green. And finally we make our way into just above Lucifer Falls, this big rocky rugged area which is so scenic. And then we get down, if you see in the back there, you can see the trail winds around to sort of a little promontory. So we're going to go down there and turn around and look back at the waterfall, which again is not doing a whole lot there. There's some water, more than Taganic, I would say, but not much in general. So we'll take a look at, we'll actually put this in motion here, see if I can get up a video about this. Okay, just stand by. So it's nice to put that in motion for you, but still worth going to see, definitely, but not what most of us remember that falls being. Most of the waterfalls around here, except for Lucifer Falls and Ithaca Falls, which is a little hard to get into right now because of the trail construction they're doing, but don't have much water on them, but those two waterfalls do have some. So now that we're on the subject of Robert Treman State Park, I'm going to show you a video about plants and animals in the park that was part of a 25-minute video that's broken up into parts that you can see on the website of the Friends of Robert H. Treman State Park, tremanparkfriends.org. So let's see this short video. It's about 4 minutes about the wildlife, plants and animals of Robert Treman State Park. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the scenic waterfalls and cliffs of Robert H. Treman State Park, but it's also a delightful place to immerse yourself in living nature. Enfield Creek threads the length of the park, flowing through both rugged and forested sections of its charming valley known as Enfield Glen. Though the park is surrounded by lands that have been farmed, the glen itself has never been cleared for agriculture. Enfield Glen preserves a remarkable mature woodland known as a hemlock northern hardwood forest, dominated by eastern hemlock trees, sugar maples, yellow birches, basswood, white pines, and other trees that thrive on the cool, shady slopes. Hemlock trees often cover the steepest, shadiest places in the glen. Oak and hickory trees grow on the rims of the gorge. and large sycamore trees grow near Enfield Creek in the upper park. Delicate ferns, mosses, and moss-like liverworts grow on the damp walls of the upper gorge. The moist, rich soils beneath the forest support beautiful spring wildflowers. Wild columbine blooms in May and early June on rocky ledges. Herb Robert likes rocky places, as does the tiny fern called maidenhair spleenwort. The beautiful, rich forest of Enfield Glen is home to many woodland birds, including warblers, thrushes, scarlet tanagers, woodpeckers, and owls. Eastern phoebes and Louisiana water thrushes live along Enfield Creek. Ravens sometimes nest on cliffs, while crows fly overhead, and great blue herons look for minnows and crayfish in the stream. Ask for a copy of the park's list of birds. Enfield Creek is a small stream. Brook trout and brown trout swim in its waters, and rainbow trout migrate up from Cayuga Lake to spawn. Many fish feed on stream insects and other invertebrates. Join a park naturalist in the summer to look for some of the unusual creatures you can find hiding under a rock. Four-footed creatures live in Enfield Glen as well. Some like to visit your campsite. Don't feed or try to befriend wild animals for both your safety and theirs. Some animals, including raccoons, may carry rabies. If you see an animal that looks sick or is behaving strangely, or if you have had contact with a wild animal, tell a park staff person right away. To learn more about the plants and animals of Enfield Glen, check the schedule of naturalist programs on park bulletin boards. Okay. So, park is still open. It will be open until, well, it'll be open technically year-round. They'll close some trails in the winter, the Gorge Trail in particular. But, yeah, great park. I'm a member of the Friends of Robert H. Treman State Park, and you may want to be as well if you go to their website at tremanparkfriends.org. Now, I like to go for a walk in the park most every day if I can, whatever park it is, or along a trail like the Finger Lakes Trail. Here's the Finger Lakes Trail in Danby, and you see the trail marker on the left there and the posted sign on the right. Now, the Finger Lakes Trail, a lot of it goes through state forest and state parks, but most of it goes on private land, and so it's up to the landowner's permission for the trail to pass through there. So we really have to respect the needs of the landowner and the requirements. And one of those requirements is that some sections of the trail are closed during hunting season. So you'll see these signs posted in this particular section I was on is closed during hunting season. And hunting season is long as far as they're concerned. I assume they're talking about the beginning of bow hunting season for deer. So it's closed from October 1st, some of these sections are, that is, until late December, December 22nd, in some cases December 25th. So respect those signs and go on. They have some, oftentimes there are alternate routes specified on adjacent dirt roads and that sort of thing. So if you come to a section that's closed like that, usually it's rerouted onto an alternate route. You have to go get a map for the trail. You can buy them at some of the bookstores, and the trail to the Guides of the Finger Lakes region in some of the bookstores like Buffalo Street Books has had them. And you can also order them off the website for the Finger Lakes Trail Conference .org, I think it is, and also the Cayuga Trails Club, which is responsible for the section around Ithaca, Watkins Glen, and east of Dryden and so forth. So sometimes when you're walking through the woods, you'll be walking through some otherwise modest woods, but you'll come upon some very large trees occasionally. And there's a story behind trees like that. They're certainly very impressive and very different from the trees around them. So I got a little video I made up, one of my park minutes, to talk about these trees. So let's take a listen to that. A century ago, the hills near the Finger Lakes were mostly agricultural land. But with the abandonment of marginal farmland since then, forest has returned to vast areas, including much of the landscape crossed by the Finger Lakes Trail. Occasionally, a very large tree, such as this enormous white oak, appears in the forest, dwarfing small trees around it. They have been called wolf trees because they appear to dominate the forest. Wolf trees usually have large spreading branches indicating that they grew in the open, such as in a former pasture, before younger trees surrounded them. Oaks such as this one may be more than 100 or even 200 years old. Wolf trees provide excellent homes for all manner of wildlife, and large white oaks like this one can serve as prodigious seed trees for the future of this forest. You know, originally they're called wolf trees. They were thought they should be taken out, and wolves had a bad name in the old days, and not as much anymore. So foresters would take out these big old trees. They figured they didn't have much value, and that they got in the way of younger trees that were tall and straight that would have good lumber value. But it turns out that they do have some value. They are homes to wildlife, as I mentioned. It's a trend. As forestry has shifted to more of a forest ecology standpoint, and looking at the history and the ecology of the forest and the health of the forest as a whole, the trees are particularly noted for their value for wildlife, for insects, for birds, for denning mammals, and many other species. And they're also very, as I mentioned in the video, very valuable for providing seed for the future of the forest. So a big oak like that will produce lots and lots of acorns, which will help seed the returning forest with oaks. So it's good to leave some big trees like that. They have values more than lumber. So once again, we are watching Walk in the Park, and you can see all of my shows at walkinthepark.tv. All right, so now we're going to take an interlude to get some samples of music that, this past weekend on September 18th, Sunday, September 18th, was Porch Fest in Ithaca. This is the 10th year that we've had Porch Fest, and Porch Fest actually started is centered in a park, Thompson Park in Ithaca. It's a city park downtown in the southern end of what's called the Fall Creek area. So Porch Fest has become very popular. I think it originally started off 4 hours. Now it's up to 6 hours. That's probably something like, it seemed like 200 different acts going on people's porches. People volunteer their porches of their houses, many porches in that section of town, and people volunteer their porches to have bands play on them. And some of them are really professional players, and others are have day jobs and so forth. But a lot of talent in town. So let's listen to just some samples of the Porch Fest festival last Sunday.
hopping and a bopping, singing this song. All the little birdies on J-Bug Street love to get a bump. Rockin' Robin, Rockin' Robin. No, Rockin' Robin, cause we're really gonna rock tonight.
Tears on the river, push on the shell, don't be much. Sugar on jack, match on the fire, cold on ice, dead man's touch. Whisper on the stream, doesn't change a thing, doesn't bring you back. New Orleans, New Orleans.
Every time I touch you, you just tremble inside. And you know how much you want me back. You can't hide. Can I just have one more moon dance with you, my love? Can I just make some more romance with you, my love?
Thank you.
my backbone was his own. Darling, I just know you care.
So there was a lot of fun to be had, and if you saw the Porch Fest, if you spent the afternoon out there, that will pique your memory a little bit and some of the fun that we were all having. And if you didn't, well, that's a little sample of what Porch Fest is about. And other cities around the country are doing Porch Fest as well. I don't know if Ithaca is the first place, but I do know that Ithaca has inspired other places to have Porch Fests. So we're going to go back in the gorges, back into the woods, back into walk in the park in the countryside. Let's go over to Buttermilk Glen. I live near there, so I go there a lot and take a walk in the gorge there. And there's not a lot of water in the stream you can see on the left there. Well, this is the story, but there's a lot to see. And you can look at the rocks, and sometimes the low water gives us different things to appreciate, like reflections, is the still water in pools and so forth. Get reflections of the forest above, in this case, on a flat rock area. Here's another one. Reflections of the cliff and the forest and distortions. So a lot of sort of abstract paintings in a way that the gorge waters give us, the pools that are there. This is one that's been particularly popular that I put up on Facebook. In Buttermilk Glen, this is just in the upper section of the gorge, Buttermilk Falls State Park. So it's still worth going out there. Your attention won't be on the water so much, but you can also take a look at the amazing shapes and of the trees and the hues and the rocks. There's just so much. You go one spot, hang out for a while, and you start to see things that you didn't see before. If you rush through, maybe you don't see some of the details and some of the really amazing stuff. Like here's a bend in the trail and cliff is cut and there's some big cracks in it and layers and so forth. I really like that spot. Here's a garden of ferns and a few little asters in there too, but this is a fern that grows in our gorges, is quite common, called the bulblet fern. And so just hang out with some of that stuff. And then some unusual shapes that we get sometimes in the rocks of the gorges where they've been polished by the water over time. So this is a place that normally has a lot of water flowing through it, and you can see there's a little water in the bottom. Maybe you can see there's a little water in the bottom of this picture. It might be cut off in your screen, but that was the creek bed. And then sometimes when the water rises, it polishes all of these very thin layers of shale, and that have their own fractures and structures in them that tend to rule how the rock is worn. And then up on the cliffs, look at this tree growing up amongst the cliffs above the trail in Buttermilk Glen. And look at this pile of stuff, pile of rock. It's not really a pile, that is the solid cliff there, but it's opened up and eroded by the gorge, and trees have gotten in there and breaking it up. Look at those big hemlock trees with their roots getting down into the rock. So that's pretty cool. Here's a waterfall that doesn't have much water on it. That's called Triple Cascade in Buttermilk Glen. And here's what it looked like. This is what it looked like a couple of weeks ago. This is what it looked like in April, and maybe more normal flow. So that's what we're missing, folks. We're missing that. But that's all right. We can see the rocks, and we can see the shapes that are in the rocks. And something maybe we don't normally pay attention to or get much access to because of the roaring water. And you can see those deep pools that normally you wouldn't see, that have been polished out and pounded out by the water rolling rocks around over time. Here is a plunge pool, as you call it, at the base of a waterfall, which is not much of a waterfall right now, but so you can see the details on that. And I actually have a short little video of that plunge pool. Okay, so that's all I have time for today. So join me again next week and go for a walk in the park. We'll close with this image of just the other day on Cayuga Lake from a sailboat at evening when there wasn't much wind to sail with.